Not his 3 wives, not his 4 children, not even his neighbors had anything bad to say about him. Hidden in a secret compartment behind a closet cabinet in his home office were 4 hard drives packed with millions of depraved images and videos. Now, the last day of 25-year-old Wendy Knell's life was uneventful until it wasn't. June 23rd, 1987 found her working her regular shift at Supasnaps, a photo development center she managed in Tunbridge Wells, England. When the clock struck 5, she collected her things and stopped at the bank before going home. Later that evening, she went to her boyfriend's house to spend time with him and his mother. By 11, he was dropping her off at home. When she unlocked the door to her cozy little bedsit, she had sleep on her mind, but she walked into a nightmare. The next day, when Wendy didn't show up for work, her boyfriend went to her place to check on her. He found her in her bed, covered by a duvet. Shockingly, none of her neighbors heard a thing through the thin walls. 5 months later, not far away, 20-year-old Caroline Pierce took a taxi home around midnight after a fun night out with friends. But instead of unwinding before bed, neighbors reported hearing a high-pitched scream coming from her place that night. But when help arrived, she was nowhere to be found. For 3 weeks, there was no sign of her. And then one day, 40 miles away, a farmer spotted something strange from behind the wheel of his tractor. A battered woman wearing only her tights was lying in a watery ditch. The mystery of what happened to Caroline had finally been solved. Just like Wendy, she was beaten and strangled. The only clues their killer left behind were a bloody fingerprint on a shopping bag and a bloody footprint on the sleeve of Wendy's white shirt. So, over time, the cases went cold and the 2 unsolved crimes became known as the Bedsit murders. For decades, there was no justice, no name to lay the blame on, no explanation for any of it. Why them? And the biggest question of all, were there more victims out there? As the years went by and DNA technology evolved, the local police decided to take another crack at the Bedsit murders by using familial DNA testing. Now, those 3 words should strike fear into the hearts of killers everywhere, because now police can test unknown DNA against DNA submitted to some ancestry sites. And if anyone in their family, even people they're only distantly related to, has ever been curious about their genealogy, well, they can expect a knock on the door. And for the Bedsit murderer, that knock came in December 2020. 33 years after he brutally ended Caroline and Wendy's lives. When the cops traced his DNA to his doorstep, the man who opened it could have been their grandfather. He was a 67-year-old, mild-mannered father of 4, living in a lovely neighborhood in East Sussex. After spending a little time in the Navy, he had built a career as an electrician, sort of a maintenance man, at 2 respected hospitals in Kent and Sussex. His co-workers liked him. They told the BBC he was the kind of guy who would change a light bulb or fix a fuse with a smile. He was also kind of a hoarder, not the type you might see on a reality show, but the kind of guy who saved every piece of electronics and paperwork he ever used over the years. They found something like 30 cell phones, old ones that didn't even work. He had dozens of computers and laptops. He saved receipts going back to the early 80s. He kept his calendars and appointment books. So why Wendy? Why Caroline? What connection did he have to them? Well, as they sorted through 250 boxes full of stuff, they got their answer. Over the years, he'd taken hundreds, maybe thousands of pictures of this and that. And in one picture taken in 1989, he's lying on his stomach in the grass, enjoying a picnic, and the soles of his sneakers are showing. The same sneakers that stepped in Wendy's blood and left its mark on her white sleeve 2 years before. They also found dozens of receipts from Supasnaps where Wendy worked. That was the link between them. He chose her because he was a regular at her store. They also found receipts from a restaurant called Buster Browse. He seemed to really like the food there. Unfortunately, that's where he developed an obsession with Caroline. She was a popular waitress there. She probably served him his fish and chips with a smile and a friendly greeting, never knowing she was looking at the man who would take her life. He was just so ordinary. No one would have believed he was so evil. Not his 3 wives, not his 4 children, not even his neighbors had anything bad to say about him. Hidden in a secret compartment behind a closet cabinet in his home office were 4 hard drives packed with millions of depraved images and videos. It made no difference how young or old they were. He assaulted women of all ages. As it turns out, it wasn't difficult for him to do. His job on the maintenance team came with an all-access swipe card. The neighbors heard him leaving home at odd hours because he volunteered for the late shifts, so he had easy access to the morgue at night when the place was quiet, and he knew how to get away with it. According to the BBC, one end of the room can be seen on security cameras, but the other end, where the post-mortem exams happen, doesn't have any cameras. He carried on like that for 12 years, right up until the day they caught him. And based on his interview with the police, not even David knows why he did it. Or if he does, he's not saying. At first, he just lied and he denied the murders, the rapes, the desecration, everything. And then he tried a diminished capacity defense, otherwise basically known as the insanity defense. But halfway through his trial, he gave it up and took the guilty verdict. He got 2 life sentences and he's never getting out.